Hi, everybody, and welcome to our little corner of YouTube. I am Lauren Leroy, also known as Little Miss Funeral.
My name is Joelle Simone Anthony, and I'm also known as the Grave Woman.
We just wanted to talk a little bit about something that's really important to the both of us, something that we've both kind of struggled with and have written about, and something that we just think is very important for funeral professionals. And that is the topic of compassion fatigue and burnout within the funeral industry. So compassion fatigue, if you go to compassionfatigue.org on the website, they actually define it, Dr. Charles Figley defines it as a state experienced by those helping people or animals in distress. It's an extreme state of tension and preoccupation with the suffering of those being helped to the degree that it can create a secondary traumatic stress for the helper. I honestly never heard of compassion fatigue until about 3 or 4 years ago. Joelle, when did you hear about compassion fatigue?
Honestly, Lauren, the first time I heard about compassion fatigue was when you emailed me, and it was a name for what I had been experiencing in the past. I sent you the blog where I'd written for Funeral One, and I knew that something was off, which helped me to write the blog, but I didn't actually have a name for it. So the first time I heard about it was when you named it in your email. How did you know that you were experiencing compassionate fatigue?
So I was 20 years old when I started working in a funeral home, and I kind of just dived right into everything. So for me, I really wanted to prove myself. I was the only woman working in this funeral home at the time. I had two other funeral directors who were above me who were really good at what they did, and I just kind of didn't want to be seen as the little girl who wanted to play funeral director, because I'm 5'2". I'm like really short, so I don't look like this professional woman on a normal basis, just because I look a little bit younger because of my height and everything. So for them, I really, really, really want to prove myself. So I put in a lot of hours. I put in anything that anybody would ask me to do, I would say yes. So they'd ask me to stay later. They'd ask me to cover. They'd ask me to embalm a body or do a transfer. And I was always like, absolutely, I'll do it, because I wanted to get the experience, and I wanted to prove to them that I was serious about this career.
Right.
So for me, not really knowing, I mean, I have family in the funeral industry, but I never really had experience within a funeral home until that job. And it was just very difficult to start this lifestyle, I guess, because it is a lifestyle being a funeral director. So for me, it was more the longer hours I put in, the more work I was doing. I just kind of constantly being surrounded by death and dying. It was very heavy for me. And as time went on, I just thought I was experiencing depression. And I thought, like, oh, maybe this career is not for me. And when I really, looking back at that time in my life, and like I can think about it with a clear head now, I actually see that it was compassion fatigue, because everything that I was doing for somebody else. So all of the families that I was meeting, I was taking all of their grief and all of their sadness, and I was putting it on me, and I was trying to fix them. And I was trying to be that rock that they needed to kind of help them through the grief process, not realizing that all of that was weighing down on me and was becoming stress for me, because I couldn't shake it off.
Right.
So what about you? When did you realize, or even looking back now at your career?
Well, prior to becoming a funeral director, I actually worked for SCI as what they call a family service advisor. I think that was the title, in a cemetery. And I would be the person coming into the cemetery all bubbly. Good morning. How are you doing? Da, 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 da. Because that's just my personality. And a funeral director pulled me to the side and told me that, in order to work with families, you can't be so happy. And so I would try to be somber, right? And in engaging with the families and helping them plan the cemetery side, I decided, okay, I could really do this as a funeral director. So I decided to go to mortuary school. And I can remember, if it was cloudy outside, I just felt myself coming down. as you know, in mortuary school, you know, we're talking about different case scenarios, how you handle different, you know, traumas and things like that. And just looking at those pictures and seeing things like that, it was like almost like a shock for me. And I remember just sitting in class thinking, why do I feel so sad? Like, why do I feel just sad? I'm not a sad person. So that's when it initially started. So after mortuary school, I actually ended up getting a job in another profession and simultaneously doing my apprenticeship. And during my apprenticeship is when I can say that I really, really, really started feeling the impact of compassion fatigue, because of course, I'm interacting with the families. You're seeing everyone from premature babies to old ladies coming through the funeral home, cases of all kinds. And like you said, you know, just taking on that energy from the families that you're working with, it becomes a weight if you don't know how to release it. And I remember I had just gotten a brand new car in 2016. I had a brand new car, had a brand new apartment that was gorgeous. And I remember sitting at a stoplight and just thinking, why am I not happy? Why am I not finding joy? And like, what's going on with my personality? And then family members started actually pointing out to me that, you know, your personality is a little bit different. Is everything okay? And like you, I have a family member that was very involved in the funeral service industry for many years. And when he passed away, I had to confront a lot of things. And that's when I just realized something's not right here. And I think a lot of us in the funeral service industry, and particularly with my loved one, they find comfort in things that aren't very healthy, like alcohol or drugs, or, you know, taking it out on their family. I've always heard that if you're going to be a mortician, you're not going to have a healthy home life and things like that. So all of those fears in combination with what I was feeling just really scared me.
Absolutely. Two things that I just kind of want to put in from listening to you talk. Number one, that you were saying is that you couldn't find your joy. And I feel like that is such a huge thing, because a lot of funeral professionals, or even people who are interested in the funeral industry, they hop into this profession because they have such a passion for wanting to help others and for wanting to make a difference. And if you let this career do so, it can give you so much. I mean, just interacting with families and the relationships that I build with families on a daily basis when I'm working, and just that satisfaction that this job gives me, is something that I can't imagine another service industry giving to me. But that being said, you really have to find that balance, because this career can give you so much, but it can take so much from you too. And it's kind of like that fine line that you're going to end up walking, where it's a heavy career, it's a demanding career, but you're in it for the right reasons. So you have to remember those reasons, and you have to remember to take care of yourself too.
Yes, definitely.
So it's just a huge thing. And then the second thing too is with what you were saying, people finding their releases in not healthy ways. And when I was in mortuary school, I remember like all of my friends like partying constantly. And even like for me in mortuary school, we had two groups of people. We had the kids who were like my age, where we were fresh from high school going into this job. And then we had what we called like the older funeral kids, where they maybe were like in their later 20s, early 30s at the time. And they had family in the business. And it was kind of like well, I have a job, so I might as well go get licensed kind of a thing. So you had those groups of people where we had no experience, and then they had all of this experience because they grew up working in a funeral home and things like that. Well, these funeral directors who had experiences would tell us stories about like funeral directors are the best partiers, and we can drink you under tables, and we can do all this stuff. And as I've gone through this career, it's kind of sad, but it's true, because this is such a hard career. It's almost like people do try to find joy however they can. And for a lot of people, it's in unhealthy ways, like you were saying, with drugs and alcohol. And that's, I'm not going to say like an occasional drink won't help you, you know, if you want to unwind with a glass of wine. But when you're taking it to that unhealthy level, that's going to make your burnout, your depression, your compassion fatigue 1,000 times more complex and worse.
I want to touch on what you said about the two groups in mortuary school, because like you were a part of the fresh group. I was a part of the older 20s group. I started mortuary school when I was 27 or 26 years old. I graduated when I was 27. And though I had my uncle in Florida who was a funeral director, I went to school here in Georgia. And I know, like you're saying, I mean, funeral directors are some of the best partiers that you'll ever meet in your life, at one point, myself included, you know? So I think it's important to be honest about these things, because it's kind of like the dirty secret of the industry that nobody wants to talk about, is the fact that, you take these things home. You are dealing with people we are dealing with people in the worst moments of their lives that they will experience ever. And that's heavy. And for me, recognizing that something was wrong, acknowledging that something was wrong, and actually seeking help. I actually went to a therapist, not just for the funeral service industry side, but because of things that were going on in life and, experiencing grief of my own. I needed to talk to someone. So I think it's so important that we have these type of conversations. And I just want to thank you for being open to having this conversation at all.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think that's one of the biggest things when we're talking about compassion fatigue and burnout is I feel like a lot of funeral professionals out there don't want to acknowledge the fact that they might be struggling because they see that as a sign of weakness. But it's not a weakness. It's knowing that you're putting your heart and soul into your career and you're caring for other families so much that it's affecting you. And I always this is my big motto is you cannot help others if you don't help yourself first. And Definitely. I feel like we always forget that. I feel like as we go throughout our journeys with our careers, it's like we want to give so much of ourselves, but we forget that if we're not taking care of our own physical and mental health, there's no way that we can help somebody else going through the hardest thing that they're ever going to have to go through.
Very true.
So I want to also talk real quick. You wrote an amazing blog for Funeral One, and I think that you give really amazing advice in here. It's how to, if anybody wants to read the actual article, I'll link it in my YouTube description bar below. Also, it's how to conquer the elusive funeral professional work-life balance. And just to go through really quickly, like the couple of points. The first one that you have is it all starts with you. So do you want to kind of go on about that just a little bit?
Sure. Like you just said, like so many other things in life, we seem to look on the outside first. But the truth is that it all starts with us. Like you said, if you're not taking care of yourself mentally, emotionally, physically, and as I've learned spiritually, especially whether you're Christian, Muslim, you have no religious association, that is so important. And just to have that connection to something that keeps you grounded, it all starts with you. It's not the family's fault that they're experiencing a loss, and it's not your fault that you have that compassion and that gift for helping people through the worst times of their life, but you have to take accountability for your own well-being. So it starts with us.
Absolutely. If you can't ask for help, you're not going to get help. So the second thing on your list you have is probably my personal favorite one, rest.
Yes. Yes. And that includes rest, not only for your physical body, but also for your mind and your spirit. As we know, death does not keep business hours. We're on the go 24/7, whether it's responding to an email, responding to a call, responding to a first call where someone's just died. We're always being pulled in a different direction. And even when you're at home, because funeral service is such a demanding industry, it's like we're always thinking, oh my gosh, should I finish this? Or is this family going to be satisfied with this? Or did I really do what was best for this family in this situation? Or what else could I have done? I think it's so important to find rest. And one of the ways that I find rest is in the form of vacations. Like I love to travel, just getting away, seeing new faces, new environments, having new experiences. It rejuvenates me in a way that just is indescribable. And I encourage funeral directors from all over the world to travel.
I love relaxing, but I find that it's hard. for me to do it because I almost don't know how to. So I think vacations are a great way, like even taking a cruise or something like that, because cruises, I went on my first cruise last year and it was the best thing that I ever did because it almost forces you to relax because for half the time you're on this ship. So you can't really do anything else. And then when you pull into the ports, you can see these, beautiful beaches in different parts of the country or world even. So I think that learning how to rest is a huge thing. Now, the third thing that you have is take a moment and smell the roses. I think I said resting is my favorite one and it still is, but I think this one is really good too.
Okay. Yeah, taking a minute and smell the roses. Like I said, and as you know, we're always on the go. Like someone always needs something, and it sounds cliche, but just taking a moment to pause and say, "Oh my gosh, I'm alive." When you're surrounded by death, I think we have such a different perspective than the average person, and it doesn't make it better or worse. It's just that we know that life isn't promised, and we literally see it on an almost daily basis. So just taking a moment to appreciate the little things like your dog or your baby or, just having a cup of coffee, just smell the roses. Find something that you enjoy that is going to just give you a moment to yourself to just forget about everything else.
Absolutely. Something that I love doing when I'm at work and if it's a particularly long day or if I'm just feeling kind of stressed is I'll just kind of go into my car and I'll turn on the music and I'll spend like 5 or 10 minutes, whether it's drinking a cup of coffee or just kind of being alone in my car. And by just either having the taste of that coffee or listening to whatever music I'm listening to, it's kind of just like my time. And it kind of helps me to get away from work without really getting away from work when we're really busy, because you can't really go anyplace when you have a job to do, but it's also just a nice way to take care of yourself and to give yourself just a couple of minutes, to kind of ground yourself, like you were saying. Okay, and the fourth one that you have is start each day in peace, intending to focus on the positive and responding to challenges with love.
Yes, and out of the list, I think this is becoming the most important part to me because I'm realizing that if I start my day by and for me, it's quiet. For other people, it may be noise and music. But if I can just start my day with maybe like a prayer time and just some silence to set in the intention for today. Like today, I'm going to enjoy just being here. Like if I'm at home, okay, I don't have to run out and do anything else. Just starting the day with an intention. It's really powerful. And I hate to sound like, all woo-saw, but it's true. Like if you start the day with the intention of, I'm going to be peaceful today, nothing is going to disturb me, because just as rewarding as funeral service can be, it can be very frustrating in some senses. There are some families that aren't going to be satisfied with anything you do, and they're going to be families who are impressed with everything you do. So if you set your mind to just enjoy the day, no matter what comes in your direction, I think it has the power to set the tone for the rest of the day. I really do.
I totally believe that. And I love it because that's something that I've never even thought of. Like for me, I always end my day. Like I'm a Christian. So for me, it's like at the end of every single day, it's like, that's when I pray and that's when I talk to God. And for me, I always thank him. So I'm always thanking him for the day. And I always thank him for, anything that had happened. But personally, I've never started my day like talking to him or praying or finding my inner peace or anything like that. So I think that is 100% true. If you start the day with your intentions, today is going to be a good day. Today I'm going to get all of my work done. Today I'm going to be helping families and I'm going to take time for myself. If you put that into the universe, that stuff's going to come back to you. I'm a full believer in that.
It doesn't have a choice but to. Thinking back, I think it was the realization of mortuary school combined with the apprenticeship that really made me start to realize how blessed I was to have my family, like my mom, my dad, my sister, my uncle at the time, and other friends and family that I hadn't lost. And I almost developed like a panic and an anxiety when I would hear, or someone would come into the funeral home and say, I lost my mom, or you're preparing for someone who'd lost a sister in a tragic car accident, or it almost created a sense of frenzy in me. And I started having a lot of anxiety attacks, thinking about the things that could happen to my family. And what you said about gratitude just then, about the end of the day, one of the ways that I overcame that with the help of, my therapist, was thanking God for today, in combination with just taking the moment to like be grateful for them. Like, you're here. Like, when I'm with my family now, before, we're always doing this. Something's always going on.
Yeah.
Now I want to look you in your eyes. Like, I want to hug them. I want to tell them how much I love them. I know I irritate them every day. I call them, I love you. I just wanted to say, hey, because I can. And the reality set in that there's so many people out there that can't anymore. Mm-hmm. So I think that was a big contributing factor to my compassion fatigue.
Absolutely. We're in a position where we see a lot of different things. We understand that tomorrow's not promised. And I feel like everybody knows that, but people don't, it, but you don't live it, because you think bad stuff happens to other people. Bad stuff doesn't happen to me. And hopefully, bad stuff doesn't happen to you. But the thing is that everybody dies. Every single person's going to die. And we never know when that's going to happen. So it really is important to appreciate the people in your lives today, to tell them how much you love them, and to tell them how much they mean to you, because maybe tomorrow would be the day something happens, And then that brings me to your fifth point then, which is celebrate.
Yes, celebrate. So many times, especially if you're an overachiever like many funeral directors are, we don't take time to celebrate the little accomplishments. When we're in mortuary school, we want to pass our exams. When we're graduated, we want to pass our state and conference exams. When we pass those, we want to get a job. When we get the job, we want to do a great job. When we do a great job, we want to get promoted, and we're just constantly going. Families are coming at us all the time, and we don't take the time to say, you know what? I passed my conference exam. I need to celebrate. It's nonstop. So taking the time, stopping and celebrating what it is that you've accomplished, whether it was doing the best that you could at making or arranging the floral arrangement for a family, or whether it was, that was a very difficult embalming case that I just did, and I didn't even have to ask for help. Like, I did this. Celebrate that. Go out to dinner. Go on a trip. Buy something online that you like. Find a way to celebrate yourself every day and celebrate those around you. I think that is so important.
I love that. I think it's so important too. I think that that's just a positive way to fight off a lot of stuff, because especially when you're dealing with depression, when you find yourself, I describe it as like, I found myself just like in this hole, and everything sucked, and I couldn't do anything about it. I was so unhappy. Like, I couldn't see the good little things in my life. And I feel like one of the main things, like we were kind of talking about before, is we have to realize that we're struggling with something. And when you realize that you're struggling with something, that's when you can ask for help. And that's when you can take the steps, and you can realize that you do need to do something different, because how you're living your life now and what you're doing now obviously isn't helping. And by just celebrating those little moments in your life, even if it's something like, I'm severely depressed and today I got out of bed. Like, that is a huge accomplishment for so many people out there. And it shouldn't be like, I'm so depressed and I didn't do anything today. It's like, no, you're still here. You're still alive. You're still a part of our world. That in itself is a celebration for so many people out there. And I just feel like all of these points that you were writing about in your article are just amazing little things that people can do on a daily basis. They're not anything that is so out there that maybe only a handful of people can do. They're little things that people can implement in their daily lives that can really make a huge difference over time. One of the main things too is just talking. Find somebody. So many people out there realize what you're going through, because we're going through the exact same thing. It's just people aren't very vocal about the hard things in their life a lot of times when they're going through their struggles. So finding somebody to talk to, realizing that, you know, you can make a hobby, you can just go for a walk, you're in control of your life. At the end of the day, you know, you can make changes in your life by just doing something for yourself.
I agree 100%, Lauren. And I think it's so important, like you said, to communicate that something's not right. I mean, thank God, you know, you and I come from families where maybe someone could notice the difference and we're just kind of like thinking we're making it through, which is part of the problem. We think we're just, I'll be okay. I'll be okay. You know, I just need to get through the holidays. I just need to get, you know, whatever. Having someone that you can confide in, whether it's a family member, a friend, a professional, to just say, something's wrong. And I think a lot of us are afraid to do that because we don't want to admit that we have a problem. So I think you're 100% correct. I cannot agree more.
Well, I want to thank you. I mean, I think that this went pretty well. This
Yes,
is the first time we're collaborating together, and I hope that we can definitely continue this collaboration, put out some more videos for people out there too.
Yes, 100%. I'm in. Just let me know.
So Joelle, where can we find you?
Okay. You can visit my website, which is www.thegravewoman.com. There I have a page for blogs. You could also find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, all at The Grave Woman. On YouTube at The Grave Woman. Make sure to subscribe, like, and comment.
I'm at www.littlemissfuneral.com. And basically, if you Google Little Miss Funeral, I have like a Twitter and Facebook and all that jazz too.
Okay.
But this was awesome. I so look forward to our next video together, and thank you to everybody watching.
Yes, thank you.